Welcome to another episode of The Local Dive. This is Alex Scott, joined by Ashlyn Portero.
Hello.
Dean Limoncello LaCroix and Sarah. And Jacob Baldry. How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Good.
Hello. Hey. Glad y'all are so talkative today. We are going to continue our what we've discussed the last 2 weeks, and on the kind of now when this comes out, it'll be after your book has been released. Getting Over Yourself, available everywhere books are sold. Dean, so congratulations on the release of your third book.
It's 2.5. One's kind of a pamphlet that Moody asked me to do. It's funny promoting a book called Getting Over Yourself.
It's like Getting Over Yourself. Now let me talk all
Please
about
buy my book.
Yeah, like when I got the invite to the Facebook launch team where it's like the launch team for Getting Over Yourself by Dean and Sarah.
Producer Jacob Biceps Baldry graduated from FAMU since the last time we recorded.
Jacob.
I did. Thank you.
Congratulations. Architectural Design Sciences something.
That's close enough. Yes.
Okay, great.
Basically, he designs buildings.
Yes, rock on.
Yeah, so we're excited to kind of talk about midlife crisis, quarter-life crisis, and how pop Christianity is influencing those things, and how kind of faithfully Christians can walk through those, not through them, but kind of avoid the trap of that thinking
and walk with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so excited to dive into that in the deep dive. But before we do, we're gonna pretend that we all have a midlife crisis or quarter life crisis or whatever age you feel like is appropriate to have a crisis. Now, in this, we want to talk about what we would kind of how we would have that crisis. Like what's the, like if you think about like the old guy who goes and buys a Harley and, just is like,
That's definitely a thing.
like, like that, but not the midlife, quarter life crisis to the point where like you've lost your marriage, your testimony's in question, and you're fired from your job. Yeah. Like not that. So, what's a midlife crisis purchase?
This is like you, just a little more worldly you. Is that what we're saying? Like,
yeah, I guess, or like a little materialistic, like, or trying to get your youth back, or like be edgy, or I don't know, whatever,
Yeah.
Like sometimes for some guys, it's like I'm gonna wear a leather jacket and some skinny pants, and like and a V-neck, or every Christian pastor that's like trying to be cool. But I don't know. So what's the Ashlyn Portero kind of mid-quarter life crisis version of a dude in skinny jeans and a leather jacket?
That's a great question.
Preaching on Sunday. Like, I can't handle that guy, man. This guy's such dweebs. Sorry.
I think I would be the person, well, I can't really say it's a quarter life crisis because I'm 32, so I'm probably not going to live to be 120, but we're somewhere in between a quarter and a midlife, a third life crisis, we'll say. I think I would be the person who would like sell all my stuff and like move to a small town in New England and like bum around and like hang out in bookstores or something.
I could see you doing that.
Like, I think I would probably be the like, I'm going to move and start all over somewhere type of a person. I don't really see myself being like, I'm going to go out and, maybe if I just had to narrow it down to one thing, you go out and like buy a super expensive car or something like that. But that like the thought of that like makes me like more stressed. Cause like then I have this like, I'm trying to be a cool person, but I also like have this car that I can't afford. Like that's gotta be a bad place. Like, so I don't know. I think that's what comes to my mind first.
That's good. Dean?
So I think I would, for like to relive my youth, I'd probably put like this is just one of my couple things, but I put a really like high tech, really awesome pitching machine, like batting cage in my backyard with like lights and just like perfect, indoor, like an indoor one. It would like go out there at night and pretend that I was still good and things like that. And like invite people over to hit. They want to come over and play to like my 40-year-old friends and go hit. But it'd be like, don't think like net.
Hey, can you come play in the backyard?
Yeah. Don't think like net. Think like indoor facility where you just drop bombs.
Like a metal building and very nice.
Yeah. Good air conditioning inside.
Yeah.
Like all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not sweating.
Yeah. Like a variety of bats to choose from, like all those kind of things. Like the big, I don't know, like, so it's not like midlife crisis, like just like what would you purchase like that would allow you to like kind of have the feels of it, sort of thing. Yeah. So I would probably also like maybe do some kind of like a different pair of shoes for every day or something like that. Something dumb. Like have this like ridiculous collection of something, that I could like bust out every day.
So it could be like a batting cage and a shoe closet.
Yeah.
And
And a different pair of shoes to wear every day.
Yeah.
Like 365 pairs of shoes.
It's a lot of leadership.
It's a lot of leadership,
Oh my
baby.
gosh, help
and
us
yeah,
all.
a lot of leadership and a little questionable sexuality, but a lot of leadership.
I'm buying a fast car, and
You're a car guy. I know you do that.
But the question, the real tension is, do I like go old, and get like an old Pontiac GTO, or do I get a new Corvette or something? I don't know, but both of those would be okay by me.
I think I also have the most ridiculous, out of control, over the top, like game watching setup of all time. Like for football, baseball games, like the most ridiculous, high tech, high def screen you've ever seen, and every.
Where it's like, okay, sir, like you're not a sports analyst. Like
Exactly.
this is your house.
Yes, like
Got it.
out of
Okay.
control. I mean, like catered, like
Am I at a sports bar or in your
yes,
basement?
like that.
Right,
Like you feel like
right.
you're in walk-ons. I mean, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Jacob, what are you buying?
I'm also going with the car.
Yeah.
I would probably get something newer though. If I'm gonna go all out, it would be like a Ferrari, like brand new.
Oh, see that feels like too out of my league. I mean, like, not that a Corvette seems reasonable either, but like a Ferrari, couple $100,000. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. But I respect the flex.
Maybe I'd color my hair just for kicks. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, when you come in with colored hair, we all know things are about to
bad.
go south.
Elders meeting emergency
Yeah, then
call.
it's like an intervention.
Yes. How about there's like 4 therapists on the couch and you guys?
See, here's one way that reality TV has helped us, because like I would not say like plastic surgery, because I've seen the effects of like someone's face who has had like tons and tons of it, and that sticks around. Like, and I'm not trying to like pass judgment on anyone who has had anything at all, but like just you know what I'm talking about. Like
Right.
I've watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians before.
There are
like,
some people who think the adage that anything worth doing is worth overdoing, and that
There
doesn't
you go.
necessarily apply to Botox.
Yeah, exactly. So
as
not doing that.
As the only female on the podcast, Ashlyn, what are the female equivalents of like fast car or like risky
Harley,
kind of like like youthful
Yeah.
choice? I mean, because like it's not like, oh, I'm just gonna go relive my youth and go to an NSYNC concert. Like, I mean, maybe it is,
might
but
be.
Yeah, because
like,
the dudes is like Harley, fast car, shave your arms.
it's
get
basically
tan,
like Act 16 again.
like do curls, biceps all the time. Like it's like that kind of deal.
Jacob doesn't have to have a crisis for that.
No crisis. He's called reality.
We're gonna have a whole podcast episode where we talk about like Jacob's mind and like his servant heart,
That's a good idea.
all of the edifying things about him. Just feel like I need to counter
Giving the
all
people
this,
what they want.
all this energy.
So what are the
What are
the female equivalents
things?
of?
I mean, gosh, I feel like it's more experiences for women. So I feel like it's kind of more like, I'm going to go on a ton of like lavish trips with my friends, which like, it's great to go on trips with your friends. I've got one lined up for this summer, but like
Where are you going?
Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great trip. I'm happy to tell anyone about it who wants to go. But so I think I feel like for women, it maybe tends to be more like experiences. And then I think also there is that, it's sort of like guys, it's like trying to maintain a certain lifestyle, where it's all about like status and drawing attention to yourself. And, I mean, it's more common for like, women to like get their hair done anyway, color your hair, and, do some of that stuff anyways. I mean, maybe like going really hard into like cosmetic adjustments, we'll say.
Is like, I feel like maybe not coloring your hair like normal color, but like a sort of like a funky color, like throwing some purple highlights in or something. Is that? I don't know that that's common.
I feel like that's
but
more just like if someone gets a wild hair and they're like, oh, I just want a pink streak in my hair. It's like, okay, great. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if that's something that, it's funny to me to like think about all of this stuff literally in terms of, and obviously I know the point of it is that you you may know you're in a crisis, but you don't totally know. And so you're not thinking logically or whatever. But it's just funny, like, to think about all of these things of like, okay, if you really feel like, you know, your life sucks or you're in this like crisis mentality, it's like, you know, I'm going to go make things way worse for myself by, you know, I don't know, fill in the blank.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
So I would have to think about that. I don't think I have really any friends who, I've not gone through a third life crisis, quarter life crisis, midlife crisis, whatever. But I feel like it's probably for women, probably like some of those experiences. And I mean, I think the materialism thing is just as much there too.
Yeah. I just didn't know what like
That was interesting. Yeah.
the female equivalent to the Corvette is, but maybe it's a Corvette for somebody. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Cool. Well, that was really shallow. So as we move into,
as promised,
I know, I was going to say, we're just living up to the billing. As we move into, the deep dive and we, think about really this idea that, I mean, you know, as we were talking about this beforehand, a midlife crisis has been a sort of commonly accepted, at least phase that many people go through in culture, in life, as they kind of get to this point where it's like, you know, they hit their 40th birthday, they're over the hill. It seems like kind of the best is behind you.
It's like an explanation for things.
Yeah.
Oh, he just had midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
And you kind of freak out. Well, and Dean, I mean, I think you make the case in your book, and as you were talking, like that now it's happening sooner. So we see a quarter life crisis. We see people who are no longer content with their life, but also in the context of pop Christianity, it's veiled in language like that sounds spiritual, even though it's not. Can you give some context to, really how this in a pop Christian setting plays out?
Yeah, before with the midlife crisis, it was kind of driven by, just again, that the worst is behind me. I got to make sure I don't feel old or, those type of things. And kind of like prove I'm young, or even just to myself, like feel I'm younger, whatever it might be in that realm. But it wasn't really tied to spirituality. It's like kind of a worldly pursuit. Now, it's still a worldly pursuit, but you clothe it with God language, faith language. So you might hear someone say that they think that God has something better for me, or I feel like I'm just settling, or that I don't think God, wants us to live ordinary lives, and I just feel like I'm in a rut. Rather than just get out of the rut, it sometimes just takes a week or maybe a month or whatever. It's something has to be eliminated from my life. If I need new friends, if it's my husband or my wife, if it's a new city, if it's a new job, and again, a new city, new job, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, obviously, but like the reason for it is this belief that God wants you to excel more, or to be more, have a bigger platform, be more known, feel better about yourself, be happier, like those type of things. So people are making decisions, and so again, if someone wants to move to New York because they think God wants them to, I do not care about that at all. Whatever. But what we're seeing instead are sinful decisions being made, such as adultery. I guess we could say just overspending, anything from divorce. They're all being done in the name of personal happiness, and we justify it because that's what God wants for me, is what we would say. But it's happening earlier and earlier, and the scriptures' words to us about contentment are almost like a cuss word in this kind of pop Christian idea of a quarter life crisis, where the scriptures spend a lot of time pushing us towards contentment and declaring contentment in our lives. And that's really almost like dropping like a cuss word. As one podcaster likes to say, it's like farting in church. It's just like this, like a forbidden, like weird, awkward thing to ever think about the word, basic or contentment or ordinary, because that's viewed as the cardinal sin, which is settling, which in that eyes, that breeds a quarter life crisis.
So how much of this is tied? I mean, I think we talked about it last week or the week before, but much of, in a way, pop Christianity is sort of trying to take, and maybe what the best of the world has to offer, and kind of mashing it up with, even good things about like I mean I think 2 weeks ago we talked about kind of the four horsemen verses of pop Christianity, and like the idea that, everything works together for the good of those who are in Christ Jesus. Well, like there, we're taking a spiritual and theological truth that is really, if we think about it to its fullest extent, meant to be fulfilled in Christ for all eternity, and then trying to apply it to the American dream. Like, is that what's creating the tension and the frustration and the, like, I just don't feel like I'm living up to my potential or to what God has for me? And that's is that really what we're saying is kind of driving this recurring crises?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we're living in the middle of the American dream. We're living in what has been, taught since the beginning of our country. I mean, it's, you grow up in the messaging of, move somewhere else to, or find, make a career move, get the education. I mean, even education is a commodity in our current culture. And, so do these things that you need to do to make something of yourself. And so I think we're just living in like where did we think this was going to go? Like the natural outworkings. We don't really talk a lot about stewardship, stewarding what you have. And I think that's an important distinction too, because there's a difference between like it, there's so much to be said for, follow your dreams, like find your passions and, connect them to, make sure that you can only ever be doing the things you're passionate about or dream about. I actually think it's really important to help people understand and to talk about your giftings, your wirings, like who you are and some of the things about you as a person in the context of stewardship with a view of new creation. But we don't talk about that. And so people find worldly ways to pursue those things. And that's what the world is saying. And I really do think that between social media, between TV, between, all other kinds of things that we're consuming, not, I'm on all those things. I'm not saying like you have to go hide in a hole or anything, but when everything that you're seeing is about, live your best experience and, discover yourself and, kind of where you're talking about be the absolute best that you can be. Well, what does that mean and who defines that? And so it's always this, uphill climb, and it puts an incredibly crushing weight on people. I feel sorry for kids these days, because I felt like that even when I was a kid, but you start to hear these things. You've got to do X, Y, and Z in order to achieve, in order to be successful. And now, in order to be true to you. And that's a lot of weight and pressure as opposed to letting someone figure out over the whole course of their life, growing into the person they are. And that's what I love about the Christian view is that the Lord is day by day making you who you were supposed to be in Christ. And so we've got to have this long view of becoming, but we rush so quickly. I actually wonder if even for some people, it's like we want to rush the process of redemption. It's like we want the restoration of everything now. That's but good. When we try to do that in a worldly way, it looks nothing like what it's meant to be. That's really good.
Here's the thing too, y'all, is everything in life right now like has to be a 10, like a 10 out of 10. It's like every day it's like, go slay the day. It's like, right. Everything is just like, get after it. It's just, everything is a 10. So church services have to be a 10. And in pop Christianity, it's almost like they have a quarter life crisis with their own church. Mm-hmm. And if it's not this like experience that's just like life altering every single week, like the greatest music ever, the best feeling ever, the most connecting sermon ever, then it's like, I don't like get anything out of it anymore. Mm-hmm. Rather just the rhythms of like good. Rick Warren says, you don't have to hit a home run every week. Just hit singles. Mm-hmm. Just be a faithful hitter. You just go up to the plate and hit singles. Singles are kind of frowned upon. I don't personally like singles in baseball. I want to see home runs and doubles off the wall. Right. The more like purists, I guess you could say, are like the singles. That's kind of viewed as boring. Mm-hmm. Right? That's fine for baseball. But like in life, we've kind of used that same logic. Where we want home runs and doubles. When how the content life is built is singles and getting out sometimes. And occasionally having to bunt, occasionally walking. And that's hard for us, because the viewership in baseball has been down a lot last few years. And people have been blaming it on like the pace of the game and how it's boring for a lot of people. See, I love baseball, so I watch it all day, but I do prefer the exciting right? There's an old commercial back in the 90s, chicks dig the long ball. Remember that commercial? But it was like about home runs, like a Nike commercial or something like that. And they had
Canseco and McGuire.
yeah, these power hitters hitting home runs. And these girls are watching them. You know, and they were like, he looks at the other, and he goes, "Chicks dig the long ball." It was like this really famous pop culture commercial or whatever. But that's come into life as well. Like, if it's not always a home run or a double, like exciting moment, then something must be wrong. So I have to figure out what's wrong. So it's my job's a problem. My husband's a problem. I need new friends. You know, my neighborhood's bad. You know, like whatever it might be. You know, this town's lame. It's just there's always something, and then I have to go pursue that.
So that one of the things, and Ashlyn, I want to come back to the idea of that you were talking about, really like the ability to steward our giftings and do it in a way that is actually, edifying and helpful for our sanctification. That has the view of kind of redemption, or have the view of, has redemption in view in the way that we steward those things. So make sure we come back to that, because I would like to hear more on that. But Dean, one of the things that you were just saying is, like, as we get to that point where we, you see, it's like, oh, well, I don't feel like this is a 10, and so I need to do X, Y, or Z to make my life a 10. I think sometimes it's easy for, other people oftentimes to see that, like, we're in somebody else's life, it's like it becomes a yellow flag or a red flag where you're like, wait, like we think, oh, I'm just buying a Corvette, and everybody's like, whoa, dude, you like are not a car guy. Why are you all of a sudden buying a fast car? Like, you've had gray hair for 30 years. Why did you go just for a minute? Like, just because you're trying to be young and spunky again or whatever. Like, so people can identify that. So as we think about, especially in the context of the church and Christian community, and we are walking with people who may be sort of like slowly meandering into quarter life crisis, and it might be veiled in some of this language. How can we maybe help brothers and sisters that we know and love, like, avoid just walking straight into a crisis when we, kind of start to see these things and kind of push in on them?
Well, I feel personally attacked by the gray hair comment. But besides that,
me too.
Oh yeah, true. But so I think that, one, we had to be prepared for what's going to come, right? So in terms of the backlash, and it's always almost the exact same story. You're going to be said things like, if you bring it up, if you go there, "I'm sorry, my life's not perfect like yours," things like that. That's a famous line. You're going to be declared to be judgmental. You just don't understand me. I wish my friends would want me to be happy. Like, oh yeah, I just wish I had those kind of friends that really just wanted me to find happiness. I'm finally finding happiness. And here you are trying to, destroy that type of thing. It's interesting how it's all the same exact. It really is. It's like clockwork. So I think we need to be prepared. That's going to happen, but also look for the trigger warnings. So for me, it's usually their Instagram account, and I can just see this like overabundance of really just called overkill, of more selfies, not fun selfies like, "Hey guys, I'm wherever," not that kind of thing. Or like, "What's up? Here's my new shoes," but more just like this real kind of high drama, kind of pretending to be a model. Then like you see like an obsession all of a sudden with working out. Not, "Oh, I just want to be fit," or "I'm trying to be healthy," but like this wellness obsession. It just becomes very, very me-centered over and over again. Taking Bible verses out of context, they'll start posting them that have to do with like season the day, and things like that. And then like for married couples, what I'll see is all of a sudden like the spouse is like never in the pictures, like ever. And they're out all the time, and then I can even look at who they're with and be like, "Oh, wow, okay." That just knowing these people, it's like, okay, she just got divorced. She's having an affair. And it's like, oh crap, that type of thing. Or with guys, it's just like everything is always just the boys out drinking and, that type of thing. I'm not talking about like, "Hey, I'm going out with my friends and having a good time," like anyone should do, have a social life. You don't have to have your spouse with you every time you go do that. It's actually probably unhealthy to not be able to have that in your life. But you just see these trigger signs, and it's like almost like undefeated when you look at it and go, "Oh no." And then before you know it, it's like they're separated, they're dealing with stuff, they've left the church, they're, spiraling out of control, they've shunned their friends, they're nowhere to be found, they're not returning calls, they're ghosting you, there's all these kind of things just start happening. But if you look back at all of a sudden this kind of self-absorption started happening, and really what it was is that there was some chronic discontentment somewhere, and they didn't even realize it, but the belief was that these things in my life have to change in order for me to receive what I'm looking for, which is either personal happiness or what that person has. Like what they think that person has by watching their life. And that's what I see happen. It's probably my number one kind of counseling realm is that. So you got to know what's going on to catch it early and see the warning signs. And then approaching it, I mean, it really is different based on your friend and you knowing them. You got to say, hey, what's going on? Like, hey, I'm here to talk. You know, like I just noticed like a lot's just been different lately. Like what's going on? And just be willing for some pushback, but then hopefully the relationship's strong enough and the trust is there where they'll talk.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Ashlyn, as you to kind of revisit and come back to that point. So there is, I think, a healthy place where we can say the Lord has given me, X desires or skills or, these things that I'm growing in that I can use, but to quote, fulfill my potential. And that can easily be co-opted to mean something totally different. So how, to where you can take something that the Lord has made it, maybe it made a burden for you, or whether that's a certain community or certain people, or like a certain skill set that you have, you're a great designer and you want to move to New York to go be a great designer or whatever. When you're in a small town, I don't know, this is a terrible example, but,
that's real. Yeah.
Like, as you think about this idea of, okay, that's a gift from the Lord to be stewarded, but like, where's the tension between maybe stewarding a gift well and with the view of eternity in mind, without just like jumping all into like, this is who I am and who I'm created to be. And if you don't like it,
yeah,
middle finger.
So I think when we talk about like dreams and passions and giftings and, some of these things, usually it's either in the direction of, I'm gonna chase this thing with a sort of achiever mentality of like, I want to be the best I can be, I want to be well known through this, or, famous through this or whatever. Or it's, I'm going to chase this thing as sort of like an escape or like a place to channel, all of my discontentment into. So I think about, you have, if I am going to look at, I'm not a photographer. I'm terrible at photography, but like, if I was going to say, I'm going to go all in on, photography because it's my passion, and I'm discontent in the job that I do day to day, and it doesn't feel meaningful and doesn't feel purposeful. But what would really be purposeful is if I were doing photography. And I'm using photography as an example. You could say that about, you could be working in insurance and say, if I had just gone to med school, like I thought I should have, or like I dreamed or whatever. And what's important to say is that there can be meaning in all of those places, but it might be in that sense of like, if I had done X, it would have been more impressive and therefore made me feel like a more meaningful person. I think that's one way of looking at it. I think there's another way of looking at it of, Dean kind of used the example of like wellness. If I'm going to go all in on, if I'm doing yoga, it's fine to do yoga, I think, and just to stretch. If you have like spiritual issues with that, I'm talking about stretching. I'm not talking about like a spiritual experience, but if yoga or whatever your fitness is, or I'm a runner, if I'm going to go all in on running or whatever, that's fine to do that. But I might take that to the extreme of that becomes, the thing that I define myself by. It becomes the one safe place for me. It becomes the one thing I have in life that, my whole life begins to revolve around. And I think the main connection point is that in all of these things, if the end goal is like self-realization through those things, then that's problematic. And the sad thing is that some of the things that you may be doing, I'll use the universal we, that we may be doing are really good things that we're going to crush because we're trying to realize ourselves through them, rather than for the Christian, you have to discover your life is hidden in Christ. And so you have to discover your identity as made Imago Dei. You have to pursue who you are in God's design. And then through these means, through these different things that he has given us uniquely, it's okay to say that we're uniquely designed, like I may be a painter and you may be a musician, and we all have our different things. I'm not a painter, for the record. Nobody wants.
I am a musician.
Pat Scott, I made her day. You just mentioned your old trumpet skills.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Toot my own horn, haha.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Mercy.
But so I think we have to be able to look at, when in the conversation about dreams and passions and things like that, it's okay to have those things, but it's going to be crushing, and it's going to, really be misusing them, perverting the purpose of good things that God puts in our lives as means, of his grace for us to steward well and to really to point to him in some way, as opposed to trying to discover ourselves through those things. And one thing I want to kind of go back to, if I can, on this issue of the life crisis and the discontentment and stuff, I really think that a lot of people, and I hope this doesn't sound judgmental, because we all have, we all struggle with discontentment at different times in life, but I think it's really important to you have to be okay being by yourself, so I think some people just don't like themselves, it's you don't, if you need to be okay with just who you are and learn to like yourself and learn to, that you can be in, I was listening to a podcast the other day, an interview with Marilyn Robinson, who's a well-known literary novelist, and she said that one of the best things someone ever told her was that you have to live with your mind your whole life, and so you want to cultivate it and build it in such a way that you like the mind that you have, and I think we kind of have to think about that, but not in a worldly sense of self, in a godly sense of self. And so at the end of the day, if you just are not okay being you, if you're not okay, in your life, you got to deal with that. And more often than not, that's a misplaced sense of identity. And thankfully, God's very good to restore us in that and to want to teach us who we are. But I think there has to be some humility too, of saying, where does this discontentment come from, and how do I learn, how do I even learn who I am? But it's got to be in light of who God has made me to be, not how do I construct myself, how do I discover myself through worldly means.
Let me chime in something real quick.
Yeah.
There's Eric Liddell, the runner. He had the famous quote, when I run, I feel his pleasure. Mm-hmm. You hear that a lot. I think it was really something there in a good way. He was a believer, and he's referring to God, his pleasure.
Right.
That for him, running was such a huge part of his life. And that was a way that he was able to worship God. Mm-hmm. Right. So the running and the pursuit of running was more than just about his personal fulfillment in the moment.
Right.
It wasn't just about for him to become something, or that he had to have this in order to this. But no, running was a way for him to use a gift God gave him, an interest God gave him, an opportunity, all those things to experience relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of the created world that he's given. I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So if when you paint, you feel God's pleasure, rock on. That's a different ballgame.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be world famous for that to have meaning.
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges for us is we have to see how that channels down into the non-hobbies of life. Mm-hmm. How do I make sure that I am able to experience the pleasure of God at work, mm-hmm. in my relationships, in the basic things of life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's but I think that's just a great example of a mindset. What an awesome thing to say. When I run, I feel God's pain and his judgment. but to say, when I run, I feel his pleasure. How cool is that? To think about God that way and run his running that way. And it's pretty awesome.
And I think in a way that rightly orders just the way that he's thinking about those things. And so rather than being, rather than looking at running as his ultimate sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, it's saying, no, this is something that the Lord has given me through his grace to have a closer relationship with him. And we can, if running's not for you, you can, take out running and put in whatever other, or many aspects of our lives. But at the same time, when I think where it tends to maybe turn towards discontentment is where we no longer look for expressions of the Lord's goodness to us through gifts that he gives us, but we look at the gift as the ultimate good or God, where we long for satisfaction. Because I think that quote, he's not saying that. He enjoys running, but I think at the root of it, his satisfaction is in the Lord, and he's content in the Lord. And if the Lord took away running, that would probably be really difficult for him. But I don't think he would be.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay to feel that pain, to feel that loss. Something you really long for and really enjoy, and that's taken away from you. That's okay, But but God's not gone.
Yeah.
And so he feels God's pleasure through his running, but that's not his only means to experiencing God.
He's hopefully not made an idol out of
Yeah.
running or like, whatever the other things are that we make an idol out of,
I think to go kind of back to this idea of the quarter life crisis or the midlife crisis, another sort of sign to me and problem is when, you might start to isolate yourself, get kind of lost in your own head and start seeking, kind of input and listening to voices that are like, usually it's like from, influencers or people who like have no personal real life connection to you more than, there's a ton of like self-help just crap out there, especially for women, and if you're listening to those voices more than the people in your life, and especially if, for the Christian, like within your church. And honestly, like what popped into my head was the movie Crazy Stupid Love with Steve Carell and Julianne Moore and who else is in that? Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. Those are like kind of the four main people. And then the opening scene is Julianne Moore and Steve Carell they got married when they were like 17 or 18, I think. So, that's young. And they're in their like probably early 40s in the movie, and they're at dinner and they're just like not talking. You can tell it's just like, their Tuesday night dinner, and he's wearing his dad New Balance trainers, and you're just like, well, nothing exciting about this. And then in the middle of the trying to figure out if they're going to get dessert or not, she just all of a sudden is like, I had an affair. And then it kind of progresses from there, and then they're riding home in their suburban neighborhood in their Volvo, and she's like, it was David Lindhagen from work, and then she starts talking about, 3 months ago, I didn't want to come home. I said I had a late meeting. I went and watched Twilight by myself in the movie theater. I don't even know why. So it's like this whole scene, but it's like this whole picture of like, I just got bored with my life, but I stopped communicating with the people that I was closest to, and I stopped seeing the good in what was right in front of me, and I just sort of let that sit. And then I started looking over here, and this looked way more, exciting and whatever. And I just like needed a break from what my real life actually was. But I also just totally isolated myself from all of that. And so I think that scene is like so telling of so much of what we see now. And of course it's not, sin is the root of all of this, but I just always thought that was so interesting in that movie, where there's this sense of, the more that you sort of withdraw from the people around you and, begin to kind of convince yourself of whatever you need is over here. And then it just creates so much, wreaks so much havoc in your life. So anyways, I think that's a good movie to watch in the context of this, if you can handle like kind of a worldly movie, it's a good movie to watch in the context of this.
And you know that movie. You were nailing the characters' names and everything.
I could recite that movie.
I was like, when you said like so-and-so from The Office, I was like, well, okay, this is not just something I've watched casually.
What was the guy's name that she had an affair with?
David Lindhagen.
Yeah, you knew that?
Yeah, I was like,
played by Kevin Bacon. I love that movie. It's one of my favorites.
So...
But it also shows you the brokenness of
totally.
the
No, that's a great example. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that movie several times. Yeah, it's on like USA late at night sometimes or whatever. Yeah.
That's a movie you would watch on a plane.
Yes, that is one of my plane movies. You're right.
Really, I just love Steve Carell.
So to jump off of that, right? Like I think most of us know people who maybe it wasn't David Leinenkugel or whatever you said his name was, but that there are people that in our church or that other people who may be listening who know people who have been there, right? Like they've had the crisis, they've done the junk, whatever that is, whether that's pursuing kind of pleasure through an affair or through possessions or just like, I wish I didn't have X, Y, or Z responsibility. I need to go to a new place. I need a new adventure. And like you said, Ashlyn, it's at the root of it, it's sin, and the remedy for that is Christ, and his blood covering all of that. So for somebody who's been there, how can their community, let's say they go, oh crap, I royally messed up, and I've withdrawn from my community, I've withdrawn from people who can speak truth in love into me, and now we have the burden and the joy of walking with them. What does grace in those conversations look like to walk with people as they've pursued other things, things outside of God's design, whatever that might be, and to walk in grace and redemption. How do we do that well?
Yeah, well, this is the human story, right? It goes back to believing the lies that there's more to be gained by disobeying God, or the lie that I have to go around God for what I'm looking for in my life. So no one wakes up one day and just says, I think I'm going to go have an affair today, or I think I'm going to go, spend money I don't have and go $10,000 in debt from one shopping spree today, or I'm going to lose all my friends today and go get a new group because these people stink or whatever. There's a leak. Something happens somewhere. It's a longing kind of thing. So these aren't people usually that are intentionally trying to just like be these rebellious people. I mean, it is our nature, obviously, but like it's a result of that. Is the choices they wind up making. I mean, it's a result of our hearts, but it's hearts that were never really nurtured, that were never really grounded in Christ, or they were and they went off track. So I think we remember that. We go in understanding that these people are longing for something, and a lot of times they never really been told that. Basically, the old U2 song, like, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Like, there's a reason for that, and so that's kind of, I think, the posture to take is that understanding.
Yeah, I don't think that, like, as, wealthy Americans, like, that we do very well with long suffering. We try to, even in the day-to-day things, like my computer is going slow. So I just like literally, if you're me, I just hold down the power button until it just all shuts off and starts over. Cause I'm like, I can't stand to sit here for 30 more seconds and watch this stupid rainbow wheel go around and around. Like I just can't deal.
Beach ball
yeah. So, we want to fix the problem. We want to cut the pain as soon as we can. And it's just the reality of life that, we may get to the end of our lives and have desires that we have that are still unmet, but they're going to be fulfilled in Christ. And so I do think that that's part of it too, is learning to live, and it's not just saying, it is saying wait on the Lord, trust in the goodness of God, but also learning to live with the pain of unmet desire. Like, I think it has to be both of those things. Like if there's discomfort in your life, it could mean that something is wrong. It, I'm sure, does mean that something is like existentially wrong, right? Like we're not home yet, but it might just be something. I mean, the thorn stays in Paul's side, and so I think we have to, not in a way that like revels in disappointment or despair. Like we don't want to go there, but I do think it's important to kind of cast this vision that we are long-suffering people, and the good news is that we're going to be rewarded by that in eternity with God. And in the meantime, there is a lot to be discovered in the simple things, in the mundane things, in the day-to-day learning to live with God. I mean, anytime that I've gone through great discontentment in my life, it's not because like I had everything figured out in regards of like my prayer life and my scripture reading and my deep communion with God. You know what I mean? It's not God letting me down. And so I think, we, and the Lord leads us into, seasons of like desolation too, where it's like all the comforts, all the, like the good, the high feelings that I want, of feeling close with the Lord. Sometimes those things drop away and they're not there. And it gives us an opportunity to see like, where are we weak? Where am I disconnected from the Lord? And what is God trying to teach me through these seasons? And so I don't want to diminish, like when someone, to your point, Alex, about if someone's coming back into, kind of the fold, having gone astray or having gone through a crisis, like we also shouldn't like write off, maybe some of the pain that they've experienced or some of the troubles, or especially if there's mental struggles there or whatever. Like we need to be able to acknowledge those things, but to say, yeah, you may have discontentment, you may have discomfort. The end all be all is not to make all of that go away. It's like, what is God doing in the midst of this? And are there things that, by making some practical changes in your life or growing deeper into your relationship with the Lord, where some of that might start to go away? Yes. And I think so, especially as like our view is turned off of ourself. But I think we have to, and that's a hard thing, because it's like nobody wants to hear like, you might have desires and longings your whole life that you don't get in this life. You know, it's hard to hear that, but it is the reality of life, and the Lord promises to be with us in that. So,
Yeah, and I think even more so when we think about it in the context of sort of American dream life, you know, it's like if you have a desire that hasn't been fulfilled, it's because you haven't hustled hard enough, you haven't tried hard enough, you haven't worked hard enough, and the Lord is maybe just keeping those things from you for really ultimately for your sanctification and to conform us into the image of Christ. But we have a tendency to turn inward and think, I didn't do enough, or I must have done something better. And really it's kind of like the rat race of life that we're comparing it to, not trying to look beyond, you know, my own effort and understanding, and to say, like, I don't know, maybe the Lord is giving me this longing, but also teaching me, you know, patience and long suffering through the fact that this will not be met until it's finally and like fully met and fulfilled in Christ for all eternity. What are any last thoughts on the topic of midlife, quarter life crisis, and how we can, I don't say avoid them, but, you know.
You should get the book called Getting Over Yourself that's released. You know, I think that we have to really see our vulnerability to it, that no one's above it, because it's a really big figurative flashing light, like a billboard, you know, on the side of the road that says this is better. You should have this. You deserve this. You need this. And all those things are anti-gospel. So we just have to go back to what we really believe to be true about Christ.
I think it's also important to remember that like life should also be fun, you know?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
It's okay. It's okay to like have fun in life and like, you know, put good people around you. And, you know, I think a lot of troubles come to when like just if nothing is fun to you, like it's probably time to, you know, and that might be like signs of depression or something too. You know, it's like there might actually be, you know, serious problems there, but that you need care for. But yeah, it's like life should be good in that sense. It's not a sin to say as a Christian, like, I'm living a good life, you know, like there's lots of good to be discovered through living life, and we should like enjoy that and celebrate it.
True. Yeah. When I run, I feel his pleasure. Right. Yeah, totally. And I would also say to really work hard at taking God seriously and not yourself.
That's good. What does that look like?
I think it means that you don't think you're the center of the universe. You can laugh at yourself. You realize that it's okay that things change in your life, and you know that it's not going to go as planned, and that you're much more worried about your God's glory advancement than yourself, which means you can handle stuff. Like you can handle a joke. You can handle it not working out perfectly. You know, you can handle things like that.
Cool. All right. Well, that was hopefully a helpful discussion, and we are going to take a hard right and go into the local on tap and talk about.
Is this about to be the edgiest local on tap?
It could
hard
be,
right.
like so hard it might be a left. What are the spots in town where a midlife crisis might be most likely?
I want to go first.
Dean's got his shades on.
Oh my gosh.
Because he's about to throw a bunch.
Are you about to get in the car and go to one of these places?
Not today.
If you have ever been on the north side to Bonefish at like 5 p.m. on a Wednesday, I don't need
Watch out.
I don't need to say anything more.
I have a joke that I'm going to refrain from making because it would be inappropriate.
My sunglasses, would that help?
No, the only thing that would help is if Jacob edited it out. Okay, I'm going to go like, this is sort of all the same, but gym, CrossFit, box, which like just call it a gym, but you know, like all of those things where it's like, to me, it's like the ultimate, like, I'm going to be the best me, but that means I'm going to take off like half my clothes and show it to the world.
That's probably a better millennial one. Bonefish is like the true midlife crisis.
Yeah.
That's like, you know, I see like, it's like 5 people deep at the bar, and like, I'm pretty sure one of those people like taught me in elementary school. It's a little weird.
The
like,
old spot was Paradise in Midtown.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, R.I.P. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also outside at Hurricane, between Hurricane and the fish restaurant.
Yeah.
Out north, I forget what it's called, the new fish restaurant, the Chip Evans
Tally
owns.
Fish House.
Yeah. Outside that realm in there. So I got a few. It's my world. I would say the pickup line at any north side or private school in Tallahassee. Just
Interesting.
who's in the pickup line. Just look at that. You're gonna know who, like, just those kind of people. I would also say, I'm not saying that that's where you go to have midlife crisis. That's like the breeding. That's like their position to get ready to go out afterwards.
Yes,
It's a good
yes.
population
So
study.
yeah, but yeah, I would say another one is the bar at Benton, next to Fig Glorious Food. Yeah, that's a really big spot. That's a lot of my age. I'm 40.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of things happen. Definitely for my age group, and also Tallahassee is a big gala town.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And if you go to a gala, you see quarter life crisis, like let's call it third life, as you said earlier, third life crisis happening for all to see. Like around the drinks, it's like, where did this guy's wife go? She's nowhere to be found. She's on the other side talking to that other guy's husband. And it's I don't mean talking, but there's just like a lot going on, man. There's a lot going on. And those are some major spots in town for sure. But the gym scene is a big one. Just the more higher end stuff. You're not like your $10.99 a month gyms, but like your higher end stuff. It's like you go there for personal training and for, personal fulfillment, we'll just say. Yeah.
Well,
But
There
bar
you
at
go.
Benton, that's
There you
a big spot.
Bar Bend is a good one.
Yeah.
On that note, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Leave us a review on iTunes, podcasts, whatever that thing is called, Spotify.
Wherever you listen
Wherever you
and
listen.
find your podcast.
Yes. Like it, leave it a review, share, subscribe, all the things. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks for listening to The Local Dive, a podcast diving into deep and shallow musings about Christ, the church, and culture. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow The Local Dive on social media and continue the conversation with us on Instagram and Twitter at The Local Dive Pod.